Hey, I want to start out by painting a hypothetical scenario, and then we're going to have to do a little time traveling here. And when I say time traveling, you'll understand what I mean as I go on. But let's say it's a Monday morning, the alarm clock's going off at 5 a.m. You're not really badly hungover like you have been on some benders or things like that. This kind of would fit the way I might have felt in the early days of drinking before it really got out of control. You may have had to drink a little bit on Sunday night to try to nurse away the hangover that you had from Saturday. And you're thinking to yourself, well, you know what? I got to do this. I mean, I've just got to do this. Like the AA people and everybody in my life around me are telling me I got to quit drinking, so today's my day. I had several days like this, by the way, but anyway, just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to try to quit drinking today. This is Monday. This is a new start to the week. This is just it. I got to do this. Now you get out of bed, you head to the bathroom to splash water on your face, brush your teeth, and all those other morning rituals. And then you realize, let's just say that you were having trouble with a coffee maker the day before, and you go into the kitchen kind of apprehensive, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes on the fritz and you realize it's broken. And then let's start adding more problems. And I think everybody out here has had Monday mornings like this. In fact, it doesn't have to be a Monday morning, but for the purposes of this video, it's Monday. It's like that song, It's Another Manic Monday. Everything goes wrong before you get to work. Even though you woke up ahead of time, even though you had plenty of time to get to work, you're coming into work maybe 9 seconds before you were going to punch the clock and be late. And then the day turns out to be another horrible day. Halfway through the day, being a typical Monday like it is, your supervisor tells you, I need you to focus on doing this." And of course, it's something that's outside the job description that you have. And of course, it's something that you realize is going to be an extra burden for you because there are other people who aren't pulling their weight. But you're going to keep your chin up. You're going to go through the whole entire thing, and you get into traffic and you're driving home. You encounter all kinds of traffic jams, you encounter all kinds of difficulties, and then you happen to realize that by the time you do get home, you're going to have a whole bunch of, you've got a tense situation when you get home. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, I know I said today was going to be my day to quit drinking, but I could stop and get a fucking half pint, and it would be a big deal. I mean, I've done it before, had a half pint and stopped. I mean, I could do this one time. And you kind of debate with yourself back and forth. Yeah, but I don't know. I really said I was going to quit drinking, but I don't know. And then by the time you're almost a block or two away from where you're going, you say, that's it. I'm just going to have a damn half pint. It's just a half pint. It's not like I'm going to get drunk, or anything like that. You go home, you got the phone ringing with family members telling you what a loser you are because of this. They're bombarding you with their problems and your own. And of course, they ask the question, "Are you drinking by any chance?" And you say, "No." Because you just don't feel like dealing with it, right? And then, of course, they say, "Yes, you are too. I know you're drinking. You drink every Monday night. I know you're drinking. Put somebody, put whoever it is you live with on the phone. Is he drinking? And finally, under this pressure, you kind of say, "Yeah, okay, I had a couple of them. It's always a couple of them." And of course, now you get a new round of bullshit and everything. And you say, "Well, something, fuck it. The Monday's ruined anyway. I'm already off the wagon. I'm gonna go get me a fifth, and I'm gonna sit here and sip on it all night long and try not to use it." The next thing you know, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're saying, "How did this happen? How did I get drunk like this? What am I gonna do? I'm a failure. I'm weak. I'm immoral. I'm all these things." And now what am I going to do? Well, I'll tell you one thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to quit drinking this week. It's Tuesday morning. I'm coming to work now on 3-4 hours worth of sleep. Why don't I just wait till next Monday and I'll do a fresh start and then this won't happen again? Maybe by next Monday I'll do it. But today I'm going to fucking drink. Tonight I am. I mean, dealing with this shit. And of course, when you go to AA, you were told it's because you are living in fear, driven by 100 forms of fear, selfish and self-seeking. Self-seeking, I always thought that was a stupid term because everything is self-seeking if you want to survive. right? Character defects, haven't done your 4-step properly, blah, 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 blah. And you're thinking to yourself, yeah, but if I'm not quitting drinking, and this program sounds like bullshit, what is really wrong with me? Is it because I'm weak-willed? Is it because I'm a bad person? Is it because, what the fuck is causing this? What's causing me to act against my best interest? And now we're going to have to do some time traveling because this concept is not something new. It's not something novel. It's not even a modern problem. There are so many people that you'll see on YouTube that'll swear up and down that this all started because of social media, people on Instagram and TikTok and all this other kind of thing. Our society is degenerate and immoral. It's turned away from God and blah, 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 blah. But I think we can disprove that because in our time traveling machine, we're going to have to travel. We're going to have to fly as well as go back in time because we're going to land over here in ancient Greece. And we're going to run into a couple of guys. I'm going to post a link to this article in the comment section, but I just wanted to give my own spin on it rather than read line by line, unlike I usually do. And we're going to run into 3 guys. One of them is named Plato, one of them is named Socrates, and one of them is named Aristotle. And they're sitting around in our time travel, and we've landed somewhere in ancient Greece where they're all sitting around arguing with one another, and they're talking. And they're trying to figure out this problem that Aristotle came up. I know that Aristotle had like 4 levels of virtue, I think. It's been a long time since I've looked at anything about him, but I know that the concept of the word akrasia, I think that comes from him. I think. Don't quote me on that one. But akrasia, more or less, there's more to it. I'd have to go into the entire lecture, but for the purposes of this video and this article, akrasia, the concept, is a debate about whether it's possible to do things against your own best interest. In other words, you're going to act against what you know to be good. Now, I won't go into all the different virtue things that Aristotle talked about, but I'm going to just talk about this particular scenario and synopsis that I just laid out for you is when you do an act that in your own thinking and in your own reasoning, deduction, this is not good for me. I shouldn't stop and get this half pint. I should not probably go get a bottle. I mean, I could stop right now if I wanted to, right? And since I didn't stop when I wanted to, it's my illness talking. But these guys are sitting around and they're trying to figure out what is it exactly that causes this? What causes people to make decisions that they know are probably going to go against them, or even according to Aristotle, they're going to violate their own code of ethics or judgments or anything else. Now, Socrates, whom we only know through Plato's writings, it always cracks me up when I used to hear someone in AA say, well, I've read Socrates. You did? Because he never wrote anything. Plato is the only recordings that we have of what Socrates said, but Socrates actually said that we don't do that, which is almost idealistic. He said that all of our voluntary actions are the product of reason, the product of reasons and decisions that we make, that we come to. And that if someone decides to do something that may not be in their best interest at that moment, they must have judged it to be the best thing to do when they actually did the act, when they actually did it. In other words, according to Socrates here, if you're sitting in a traffic jam and you've had a horrible day and you're thinking about that liquor store that's right there off the interstate exit, and you go and do that, then at that moment, you did not voluntarily act against your own self-interest. You voluntarily made a sound, logical decision based on what you thought was the best thing to do at the time. And Socrates had an idea that, and this is through Plato that we know this, that whoever learns what is good and what is bad will never be swayed by anything to act otherwise than as knowledge bids. That is, once you know what the actions are, why would you ever do anything else? This is a very idealistic take. I'm pretty sure Plato, if he was sitting across from him, would have probably said, hey, what the fuck's wrong with you? People fuck their lives up all the time, even though they don't really want to, Even philosophers like Socrates, though, did observe in this particular argument that it's a contradictory phenomenon because people do make decisions that are not in their best interest. They make mistakes, and you wouldn't call it mistakes because, if I stop my car at a liquor store and I go in and I buy the liquor, you couldn't really call that a mistake. A mistake would be like if you're supposed to, if you're trying to figure up your taxes in a calculator and you leave out a 10 when you should have put in a 20 or something like that. That's a mistake. But it's a contradictory phenomenon that all three of these guys wanted to figure out what causes it. Now, acting against your best interest is something that these guys kind of tried to figure out what would be the root reason for that. Because according to them, this was not a religious problem. This was before the fall of the Roman Empire, when the church controlled everything. This, according to Aristotle, was simply, to quote the Pink Floyd album, it was a momentary lapse in reason. He had a name also called incratic action, where you would be in the same situation and you'd be driving down the interstate. You would know there's a liquor store right there, and you chose not to do it even though you wanted to do it. But he described such behaviors as over-hasty servants who run out before they've heard all their instructions and carry them out wrongly. In other words, perhaps you didn't have the opportunity to weigh and judge the decision. I can kind of dispute that because there had been days back in the drinking days when I would actually say, I don't want to do this, I do want to do this, I don't want to do this, I do want to do this. I really wished I wouldn't do this, I really wished I could do this, and I would end up just finally giving in and having a drink. I'm going to rip off a philosopher from a much, much later time in history, but like Schopenhauer said, a person can do what they want, but they cannot will the things they want. And it wasn't until much, much later in time that this changed, because one thing this article points out is the philosopher's argument about this peculiar mode of behavior is that it's assuming that human beings are inherently rational in their judgments, which anyone, I think, with any level of experience in today's world, like they didn't have Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter in ancient Greece, would find out that we're not in the least bit rational. But again, in ancient Greece, they probably wouldn't have known about evolution, and they wouldn't have known about the fact that, we're not some gift to the universe that was beamed down out of the skies by Zeus, and they would have thought at the time, or anything like that. We're animals for the most part, and we're not always rational or reasonable about these types of things. But we're going to hop back in our time machine, and we're going to do a rest stop over here around the time that the Roman Empire fell in the Middle Ages, when you didn't have any. It was like a Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome in the medieval world, and the church stepped in as the ultimate authority. The church in Rome, or for a while Avignon, France, but that's another discussion for another time. It was really easy what to do with these philosophical problems. For one thing, a large majority of the population was illiterate. A large majority of the population had to depend on the church to tell them what was written, and the church just put it all into one bracket, and they called it sin. You know why you do these things that are against your best interest, like drinking too much, or doing this, or doing that, or doing the other thing? It's because the devil tempted you, and you gave in because you're a weak-willed sinner, and you're going to incur the wrath of God if you continue to behave in such a manner. And when you really think about it, even the threat of hell in your afterlife could not stop people from giving in to these particular sins designated by the church. But that seems to have influenced, I think, our modern thought a lot more than we care to really admit. And reading this article here got me to thinking more deeply about it, especially my own religious background and everything about it. Throughout my life, any decision I made that was not in my best interest, every decision I made that ultimately turned out to be detrimental to me, not just drinking related, but many other decisions I made, there was that part of me deep down inside that said, well, you're weak, you're stupid, you're a bad person, you're going to hell when you die anyway. But it was looked at as a moral failing overall. And, it's really strange that all these centuries later, you get this religious cult like AA that claims that it is a moral failing. You turned your back on God, and that's why you became what you became. But then again, they'll also tell you that God made you an alcoholic so you can seek and do his will. I've actually heard people in meetings actually say that. But then again, that's the very nature of AA, isn't it? It's one thing when they want it to be. It's another thing when they don't want it to be. Like they'll say you can do the program any kind of way you want to, But then they'll turn around and say, if you don't do it exactly like Bill W. said it, you're going to die drunk. In other words, they want everything both ways. When it suits them, you can do the program any kind of way you want to. When it doesn't suit them, you got to do it exactly like Bill W. said it. But we're going to go all the way back to the modern world now, and we're going to say that all the ancient work on acrasia presumes what I just said, that human beings are inherently rational, and it feels a little bit idealistic. Modern day experts say that it's hard to make judgments about what's best right now, and what they're talking about, rather than just read every sentence here, I'll give you two examples, is that judgments that we make are not always based on, and I'm going to have to, and I'm not going to read it, I'm just going to say, you got a short-term and a long-term type thing in your thinking that I think they've never addressed, and they're even talking about this in society, that we're supposed to be totally indifferent about a long-term and a short-term type decision, but it's really more difficult than that in the term of, if I'm driving down the interstate and I'm thinking about a half pint of vodka, and that's the only thing I can think about, yeah, I could try to talk myself out of that by saying, well, in a year from now, if I quit drinking, I'm going to feel a whole lot better about myself. I'm going to, this, I'm going to that, I'm going to the other thing. I'll be picking up a medallion in AA in a year from now, right? And this won't matter. But then there's another part of me that's saying, yeah, but in a year from now, I'll still be sitting in AA listening to these fucking meetings, still doing the same stuff, and I'm still going to be miserable because I was miserable yesterday, and I was miserable yesterday, and I was miserable the day before that, and the day before that, and probably I'm going to be miserable forever. So, you know what? I don't even want to think about the year ahead. I want to think about that first buzz, that first rush that I get when I crack open that bottle and drain it right now in a few minutes. But it also, according to what these experts are saying, that there's more to our decisions that we make, not just on the short term and long term, but there are other more greater nuances to things. Like, for example, if someone, and this article gives an example like this, if someone's living on poverty wages, barely making ends meet, they may choose to blow all their money on fast food, for example. And you could say to that person, you know what, if you would take the money you're about to blow on fast food and you would put it somewhere, and you would just save it, and every week do that again, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again, in a year or two from now, you'll have quite a lot of money saved up. That's going to be kind of hard for someone who's just hungry and tired of eating out of cans and tired of eating garbage. Fast food is garbage, but I think you're getting the point I'm making here. It's going to be hard for them to visualize a year from now, because they're going to say, yeah, a year from now, even if I do manage to save up this much money, it's all going to go right back out the door for bills. It's all going to be gone. I'm still going to be poor in a year from now. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to blow my last bit of money on fast food. By the way, I've been off fast food for quite a while now, even though I'm still, doing this weight thing. I still got a long way to go with it. But the short-term reward, if you're living in poverty and the situation is really precarious, why would you want to think about a year ahead? It might be perfectly reasonable or logical in those kind of circumstances to look at a short-term situation, even though it looks myopic to someone who's, say, like some of these YouTubers, how I became a millionaire. Well, I became a millionaire in 1 year, and you can too. You just got to smash the like button, then you got to hit subscribe, and you got to listen to me tell you bullshit. It's important, the article kind of closes out. Like I said, I'll post the link where you can read it. But one of the people who wrote a book about actual addiction and acrasia, that's the term, said it's important to take a nuanced view of acrasia and separate it completely from willpower. The person is the author, I can't say his name, at the University of Amsterdam wrote a book on acrasia and addiction. And unfortunately, before I recorded this video, I tried to look at the book, and it's all written in Dutch. So I don't see an English translation available, but I bet you it would be a very interesting read. Between our actions and our values, somewhere, this particular, I can't say his name, sorry, is where our desires lay. These can easily come apart when we're trying to determine what's best for us, and it's influenced by a lot of different elements, including our environments, our upbringing, our socioeconomic circumstances, and even plain old biology. Framing everything in terms of willpower, framing everything in terms of success or failure,
can have a strong backlash by demoralizing people, he writes. We might all aspire to be as rational as Socrates says we are, but if that's not working, then we have to look for other ways to align our behaviors and our values. And the article goes on a little bit that says that the nature of acrasia is still very much in dispute. What really causes it? Even all these thousands of years later, we still don't know fully 100%. But we're kind of held back from looking at what may or may not be the problem behind that because the field of addiction pretends to have answers to questions we haven't even begun to ask yet. You see, there's one thing that AA people used to do that would really piss me off is that if I said, I don't know, like if I said, I don't know why I drink, why I felt the need to drink myself the way I did. You know, like in the frame of the question, it would be something like, well, if AA is bullshit, then how come you can't drink? And if I said, I don't know, they would get this smirk on their face. Well, I know. The big book says so. Well, that's not the own that you think it is. You see, sometimes the right answers to the mysteries of the universe, or even the mysteries of our own little finite lives here on this planet, is I don't know. It's not helped by coming along and providing a phony solution to something. Like if somebody was saying, I'm having car trouble, and I've taken this car to 5 different mechanics, and I don't know what's wrong with it. That's the right answer. I don't know what's wrong with it. Not for me to get a big, ugly grin on my face and say, well, I know what's wrong with it. The aliens are beaming stuff down, and it's not my fault you're ignorant and won't accept what I'm telling you is the absolute truth. It's the aliens. That's what they're doing in the field of addiction. They're assuming they know the answers to these questions and feeling smug about their ignorance about it. One thing that's amazing to me about AA is they admit to being ignorant, and they feel as though this ignorant gives them the qualifications to make judgments about everything that they know absolutely nothing about. It's really, really confusing. Anyway, if you got anything out of that, I think I got a lot out of reading the article myself because, yeah, for too long, the addiction conversation overall is marked by treating people who have addiction problems as being maladaptive, weirdos or moral failings and all these other things, when maybe it's not really like that at all. Maybe there's nuances to it. Maybe it's complex. Maybe there are reasons that you need to figure out on your own as to why you're having these drinking problems. Believe it or not, after having some time alone, there's a lot of things I've been able to examine in my own head that have given me clear-cut answers that wouldn't mean the same for everybody else. It's really funny how not being the subject of groupthink gave me the ability and the opportunity to do that. I could talk more on this, but I've talked for 23 minutes now, and I guess I'll just save that for the next video if I get a chance to make one next week, which I hopefully will do. Chime in the comments and let me know what you think about addiction. We've all made decisions that we knew were not the right decisions. We've all done things that we wished we hadn't done. We've all made promises that we did not keep. But it's not a moral failing. It's not character defects. It's not sin. There's not an AA higher power up there in the sky somewhere saying, oh, you had a beer the other night. I saw you. You're trying to hide it, but I know you had that beer and I'm going to destroy you. And then I'm going to make you do a 4th step. We know it's not those things. So give me your thoughts on this. I was going to read one of the comments this week, but I don't have it in front of me. But I've been getting some great comments here lately from a lot of people with some great observations. So until next time.